It's a pleasure to be joined by Malcolm Mcdonald on the Everything is Black and White podcast. Newcastle, of course, travel to Old Trafford on Sunday. It's a daunting game, isn't it, Malcolm? Especially when you consider that Manchester United come into this game on the back of a 4-1 win over Real Sociedad in the Europa League, and Newcastle just can't seem to get a run of form together.
No, they really can't, and they're looking so ragbaggish that some of the football that we're having to witness is absolutely appalling from Newcastle, sadly. And Manchester United, they really are just scoring goals for fun. Last night they were all over their European opposition, and of course. It wasn't that long ago. It was a couple of weeks that they stuck 9 past Southampton. Now that's frightening. In the last 2 or 3 weeks in all, they must have scored in excess of 20 goals. Man United are on an absolute incredible run. What I have to say is, let's think back to the beginning of the season, and the newspapers were absolutely slaughtering Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that he'll get the sack in the morning, and here they are in second place to Man City and are just scoring goals for fun. Well done to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's turned it round absolutely brilliantly. I really do admire him for that. But I hope that there's nothing to admire about Manchester United's performance against Newcastle at Old Trafford. I really do. Newcastle, what you have to remember is that they've just dropped to one place outside of the relegation area, and Fulham, who are the top of the 3 relegation candidates, they play Sheffield United. So that's going to be an interesting one. If Newcastle lose and Fulham should beat Sheffield United, then it's going to be a very, very close thing. And at the moment, Fulham have got that bit of confidence about them. I thought that they did pretty well at Burnley, albeit they must be annoyed that they allowed the Burnley goal to happen, and it's going to need some real footballing bravery by Newcastle United for them to get out of this ugly run that they've got, and it's not going to be helped by Manchester United, that's for sure, this weekend.
It's interesting, but if you look at the results of late of Manchester United, they have drawn against West Brom, they've lost against Sheffield United. Newcastle actually have won one more game in the last 5 Premier League games than Manchester United have. Of course, however, that one game Man United did win, as you mentioned there, was the 9-0 thrashing of Leicester. But I guess when you look at the results against West Brom and against Sheffield United, does that give you hope that Newcastle, if they approach the game right, can get something out of it? Is it all about being confident in yourself? Steve Bruce has to instill that confidence in his side to go to Old Trafford and say, come on, we're going to get something here. It needs Newcastle to be an organised side, and I haven't seen them organised for a long while. Watch Sheffield United, and they might have had a shocking time this season so far, but they are organised, and you can see how they look to spread across the pitch and how to take on the opposition, and they will get the odd good result. Whereas Newcastle, they just don't look organised, I'm afraid. They look to be all over the place, and I think it's sad to see, in all honesty. I keep hearing Steve Bruce talking about
how everything's going so well on the training ground and this and that, you know. But when it comes to the matches, what is the strongest feature about Newcastle is disorganisation.
It is the lack of leaders on the pitch. That's what is really worrying for me. But we want to talk about strikers, and there are a few better people to talk about Newcastle United strikers than yourself, Malcolm, because you don't half know where the goal is. When you saw Dwight Gale out in that wide position, when he's Newcastle's most natural goal scorer outside Callum Wilson, surely he should have been moved to the centre and, you know, play to his strength, get the ball over the top where he can run onto it, get the ball into the channels like they did in that championship season with him and Shelby. It worked so well. And I just looked at it, the game against Chelsea, Gale pushed into that role where Wilson was, and it just, from the word go, it was baffling. I just don't understand. And for you watching that, as a striker of your quality as you were back in the day, it must be so frustrating to see.
Well, it is frustrating, but when I saw that, it just made me mad, absolutely mad, because that isn't playing to the strength of the only guy on the side who's got a chance of scoring goals. He's the only one with any real historical record of sticking the ball in the net, apart from Willock, who's on loan from Arsenal. He's already shown that he will come into the box in support of the forward. But then again, seeing a goal scorer being stuck out in the right wing, that to me is sheer nonsense. Where is the thinking behind it? That's what I just don't understand. And Dwight Gale, and trust me, Callum Wilson needs this as well. They need a second forward up there. And Dwight Gale, what is required, because what the back four are lacking is a big man up front that they can just knock the ball into. The big man gets hold of it and allows the defence time to push up, and that gets the midfield in contact with the forwards. And once that's happening, great. And the big centre forward, he can set the play up in the opposing half, and it will be knocking stuff down in the box for a finisher like Dwight Gale. And I think he is a terrific finisher. And I think he's just been misused and abused. He scored a fabulous header just a matter of weeks ago, and he hasn't played again since, until they go down to Stamford Bridge and he's played outside right. No wonder he doesn't want to sign a contract for Newcastle United and will probably be away come the summer, because a player wants to be appreciated for the ability that he's got, and for me, there has been no appreciation of Dwight Gale whatsoever. He looks more abused than appreciated.
Do you think it's the case that Steve Bruce, with those wins over Everton and Southampton and the improved performances that came with this formation, where it worked with Wilson out there on the wide, do you think he's thinking, okay, I've found something and I'm reluctant to change it, even though, like we say, Dwight Gale is not suited to that. He's not the kind of person who can hold the ball up or receive the pass and then turn and sprint as Wilson does. That position is what Wilson's good at. It's not what Dwight Gale is good at, and he needs to be in that centre. But you think Steve Bruce is looking at it and it's just a bit reluctant to change it because it's worked well for what, 2 games?
I'm not so sure that there's that much thought going into it, to be quite honest, Andrew. I really don't. I think it's almost like you've got 11 Subbuteo footballers, chuck them up in the air, see where they land. Okay, you play there and that, and that sorts The team talk out. I'm not seeing any real planning, and I'm not seeing players going out with a confidence that they're organised. And players, whatever team you're playing for, you need to be organised. And Newcastle, they're forever being moved about, from one game to the next to the next. There's no consistency. Players need the opportunity to create a consistency within themselves, and when they've got that, they can then start to spread the consistency among each other, and they're all bouncing off of each other then, and they're all on the same wavelength. They're all thinking the same thing. But Newcastle, they're like a bunch of strangers every time they go out on the pitch. And so there's no real team spirit, there's no real team thought, and I'm looking at watching players, and they're sort of looking around going, oh, where do I go now? Am I right? Oh dear me, I'm not sure what to do. That's how it appears to me. And plus the fact that you have somebody like Shelby in the middle of the park, and he plays the way he wants to play. The perfect midfield player, he plays how the forward wants him to supply the ball. That's the real art of it. You know, that a forward is not going to score a goal if he's being played bad balls. And so it's up to people like Shelby to do the right thing and feed it into a forward how the forward wants to receive it. But Shelby, I think he's very selfish. He wants to play the game that makes him look good, and to hell with everybody else.
I guess though at the same time, and it goes back to what we've just previously been saying about you need to have that forward in the right position. And if you look at the average position of every player against Chelsea, Joe Willock was the furthest man forward. So he's meant to be the creative spark, as is Shelby. But then when you look at Gale, and I think Gale was the fourth furthest man forward. So there was Miggy, St. Maximin, Willock, and then Gale. And you're thinking, well, we're there. If you get the ball midfield, you're meant to be aiming for the striker, but he's fourth, fifth. It just doesn't seem to fit. I think
Bruce has to.
And hopefully Bruce has looked at it this week and thought, right, if I do play Dwight Gale, and even if he decides Andy Carroll, it's got to be the same thing. You've got to play at their strength, and them two are better in the centre. Go on.
Andy Carroll, he is an absolute frightening beast
Definitely.
To play against. He frightens centre halves. Chelsea's centre halves, they were scratching their heads looking around for somebody to mark. You know, and in the end, Chelsea, they're just playing it, knocking it about, and there's no threat for them to deal with. No threat at all. You know, and it was almost like a night off.
And I mean, if you look at Manchester United and the players they've got, we know how good Bruno Fernandes is. And if Newcastle come into the game in the same way, that same pedestrian way, where they just sit off and allow Man United, in this case, the ability to pass the ball how they like, to come forward in waves, people like Fernandes, he's going to have an absolute field day, isn't he?
Well, yes. And what Newcastle have a tendency to do when there are players who are a threat to the Newcastle defence, they tend to just drop off. That's not the way to play. It's a cowardly way to play. What you need to do is to push up, get tight on players, and try and prevent them making the runs that they want to make. But Newcastle, because they haven't got the confidence in themselves, and particularly themselves, in this particular instance, that they drop off before there's a threat. And so they allow the opposition to create the threat and carry it forward at pace. And Fernandez, dear me, it will be manna from heaven for him, because he'll be able to see all the gaps that are left in the Newcastle penalty area, and he'll be flying into them. And they're clever enough to get the ball to him at the right time. You know, when you think that against Chelsea on Monday, Werner's goal, and he hasn't scored for since God was a boy, I think. And of course, you just knew he was going to score against Newcastle United. But it was a corner kick, and it's come over. Somebody's got a little touch on it, and there is Werner and one other Chelsea player who are both attacking the far post, and nobody is covering the far post on a corner. And it was a glaring photograph in the newspapers of two Chelsea players on their own on the far post, and Werner's knocked it in from a yard.
It's always basics that Steve Bruce is always talking about, and they're not doing them. The basics defending, schoolboy defending, isn't it? It's
Let's not mark on the far post on corner kicks. Oh, that's a great idea. Dear me. But that's what it seems is going on. Everybody was crowding towards the near post and what have you, and a simple ball just over the top finds two unmarked Chelsea players from a corner kick. Dear me. I tell you what, if that had happened in my days in the Southern League playing for Tunbridge, I would have been dropped straight away. You know, and yet Newcastle, they're allowing these dreadful errors to become a part of life almost.
I mean, West Brom, though, have shown that if you do just attack a little bit, Man United could be quite vulnerable, and then you've got to kind of dig in and keep that lead or keep that goal and not concede another. But I suppose when you look at Newcastle, do you think they've got the confidence to get that goal, and then the ability, which I suppose they probably have, to then dig in and make sure they don't concede, you know, the lead, or they don't concede the point?
Right. I want to go back to St James Park when Newcastle played Man United earlier this season. And Newcastle scored very early on. Maguire was then booked. He had just been sent off, and he was treading a really shaky line. And you think, right, this is the time. He's being booked. Go and attack him. Do you know that not one Newcastle player looked to go anywhere near the fella? He was stood in 20 and 30 yards of space. And Newcastle would take it forward to a degree, but then it was lost, and then knock it to Maguire, and he's in this 20 and 30 yards of space. And what was happening was, I just watched his confidence levels going, whoa, sky high. If Newcastle had put a player on him just to make life as awful as possible for the fella, and he's in a nervous state anyway, for fear of being sent off again 2 games in a row, and they didn't bother. So if the players aren't seeing that, if the people on the sidelines aren't seeing that to get the message onto the pitch, then nothing's going to happen, nothing positive. And so Newcastle, they will get the odd result here and there, as has been recently proved. But what they really needed was having won at Everton, and it was a good victory, I have to say. And there were one or two players that quite surprised me. Lewis, for one, he started to look a bit of a player. But then the next game, it's all fallen apart. And the key to really doing well in football is putting a run of wins together. So you get the first win, all important to win your next game. All important. Really go for it. Didn't see Newcastle going for it. Just didn't see them going for it at all. Against Southampton, they were so way ahead, not just on the scoreline by half time, but in the performance, and the whole thing falls apart at 3-1 up. Absolutely crazy. And I'm not seeing players on the pitch just getting things sorted just to strengthen it. I'm not seeing anything from the sidelines. Instructions, assistance, a bit of help, a bit of advice, something, just a little switch here and there, just to tighten things up. There's nothing coming on from the sidelines whatsoever. Well, except for the new fella that's come in. And he, in his first game there, he was giving it all to them on the pitch. The second game, he's up in the stand. I saw that.
That was apparently his choice. He wanted to get a full overview of everything's going on. But that's a debate, Martin. That's going to rage on, isn't it?
But he should have come straight down when things weren't going quite right. But does he realise how quiet the other guys on the sideline are? They really are. There's nothing coming from them at all. And let me tell you that last season, when we were getting into the grounds, where I sit in the press box, it's just behind the dugout. You know when there's messages going onto the pitch. You can see the guy doing it. You can hear the instructions that are going. There is nothing from Newcastle's sideline. Nothing at all. Nothing. And they play as if there's nothing coming. You know, and yet you see all other clubs, the managers, the coaches, and they're giving and getting messages on to players just to tighten it, secure it, just make the odd little change positionally to improve things.
In terms of personnel, Malcolm, for Sunday, would you make any switches, or would you keep Dwight Gale in, for instance, but maybe just switch him into that middle?
I'd keep him in because he is your one hope of scoring a goal. But I would play him with Andy Carroll. Andy Carroll will be a threat. He'll go and take Maguire on, and he'll push at Maguire all over the place. And Maguire doesn't like that. And it will be a real physical battle. But that means that while the focus is on that battle going on, Dwight Gale, he'll just nip in and a ball will just pop out of that squabble going on between the two big lads, and all of a sudden he's in. That is your chance of getting a result out of the game. But Bruce won't do that. Newcastle will go out almost housebound. They won't have that freedom to just They won't have the strength. They won't have the positioning to make a threat on Manchester United. And so, you see, what a defence needs, and this is all defences. They need to know that if they get the ball forward, that somebody is going to give them some respite by getting the ball, turning, going, stick it in the net, and now it's a whole different ball game for defence. Instead of defending to cling on to the game, now all of a sudden you're defending to hold the lead, and the confidence levels just absolutely rise, and organisation becomes better, and everybody dovetails, and it's, you know, so but it is such a powerful thing to go a goal up. And Newcastle's defence, they very, very rarely sense that. Very rarely.
Well, just before I ask for your score prediction, I know you've been speaking to John Gibson, and your column will be going live on Chronicle Live sometime over the next day or so. Just give us a bit of a taste about what was in there and what will be coming up on our website.
Well, what I said to John was that before speaking with him on a Friday morning, I always look at the opposition and how the Newcastle side, how they can attack it, how they can benefit by it. And on this one, I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling to think how Newcastle are going to get forward, get beyond Manchester United, get into the area. I just have this awful, dreaded sense that it's going to be entirely a battle in Newcastle's half. And of course, once that starts, the confidence levels of the Manchester United players just go higher, higher, higher. And the Newcastle back four will get more nervous as the game goes on. And I have to say, I think that I think Darlow has been absolutely terrific this season. He really has. But he's let in goals, but by heavens, he's still got by way and far the highest number of actual saves of any other goalkeeper in the division. And so you know that back line is going to be put under pressure, severe pressure. Can it hold? I don't know.
Well, this is the next question, the final question of the podcast, Malcolm. What is your score prediction for Sunday?
I hope I'm totally wrong, and I shall be delighted to eat humble pie. But I think that Man United, I think they could score 3 or 4 without reply.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree with that score prediction. That is unfortunately the fear I think most Newcastle United fans are going in with on Sunday. Hopefully, as you say, you're wrong, we're wrong, and Newcastle upset the odds and come back at Tyneside with 3 valuable points. You never know. As John would say, you've always got a chance in a 2-horse race. So fingers crossed that comes true. But we do appreciate you joining us on the Everything is Black and White podcast.
Not at all, Andrew. It's been my pleasure.